All right, so we got 2:01 here, so we'll call the Village Council Work Session meeting for November 6, 2025 in order. First up is the roll call. And we've got trustees Harper, Cavendish, Cook, Dean, and President McCann present. And Ager and Rubel absent. Item 2 is approval of the agenda amendments or additions. Did any council members have any additions or amendments to the agenda? All right. Hearing none, all in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nays? All right, the agenda is set. Item 3 on the agenda is first public comments. Anybody in the public can make a comment for up to 5 minutes. Address the council, please, and state your name and residence for the record. And if anyone in person or in Zoom would like to raise their hand or unmute to be recognized, you may do so at this time.
All at once.
If nobody would like to make a public comment at this time, we do have second public comment at the end of the meeting. Hearing no takers at this time, we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda, which is our liaison reports. First up, we have the waterfront marina.
Not much to report other than the fact that they're cleaning the north parking lot out today.
Okay, any questions for Hugh on the marina waterfront?
That we're shutting down South Beach bathroom right now.
Okay.
It's full through the season.
All right, thanks for the updates. B, we've got infrastructure.
Yeah, so I don't have all the updates, but I was gonna refer to Jared and, but I do know that we got the grant for the Rose Street culvert, which is amazing and a long time coming, so that's exciting. But I'm gonna let Jared, I don't know what all the updates might be beyond that.
So quick update on the grant in terms of the timeline moving forward. Because we have to get a lot of things pulled together in order to get this started. Ideally, as soon as the season next year as possible. Chris suggested April 1, really as soon as the weather allows. We need to get an eco permit. So I've been looking into that this week, and we've also been talking about getting an engineer on board, because we really want to have somebody overseeing the project to some extent from an engineering perspective, so that we're not just doing that. So we've been talking to Matchin Engineering about doing a scope for that, and hopefully be able to bring that back in December. And then the other projects that I've mentioned, but I don't really have like a full update on, because I think we're still waiting on pricing, which has been a long time coming with for the water leak and Fifth Street projects. Both I really am gonna push. I'd like to see those done next fiscal year. Those would be the top two. And in terms of the capital improvement plan, Laura and I talked about it just a little bit. We have a staff meeting coming up where we're gonna hopefully be able to finish a draft, bring it to the planning commission in December. They can start work on that, and when they're done with that, it comes back to council. So as soon as January, maybe February, for that to come back here.
Thanks for the updates, Jared. Any questions regarding the information he provided? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to planning commission.
Planning commission hasn't met since our last meeting, our regular meeting, because we are in between the 2 weeks, so it's the same updates. Last time was working on the shoreline residential district and the D1 and the master plan. So I've met with Jane since then, and we've revised more of it, and that will be presented at next week's planning commission. The further sections that are drafted. So for review, but they're just drafts, like they're not final versions.
Mhm.
It's just after discussions, the drafts are pulled together and then the planning commission looks at it again and gives more feedback, so.
We have basically an identical agenda for next week because those zoning issues need more than one discussion, especially with D1, several things to consider with that, including the recycling site. Transit lodging definition can be quite difficult and dense, and we're also looking at different regulations for the R2S shoreline district, which would be more form-based. That'll take time too, so it's basically, we're just doing, it's an ongoing review of those.
Any rough estimate when the council would get a draft?
Of the
Oh.
master plan?
Yeah,
So
Oh,
I do know that we are working to have the draft ready if we can by the end of the year, like we're getting close to being on the final section.
Okay.
But again, that will still be a draft, and then once we have a draft that everybody agrees on, it does have to go to the public for review for, I think, 63 days. There's like a time period by
Mhm.
law that you have to follow, so it's, but we're hoping sometime, I mean, I would hope maybe January we'll have a draft here. So, but again, it does depend if we give it, I don't think that, we don't anticipate ever showing it to the whole commission and then having everybody be like, oh no, this isn't what we said. Because we've been talking about it a lot, so we're pretty aware and, have all sorts of public feedback, but if that were to happen, that does change it a bit, so.
okay. Sounds good. Thank you for the updates there. D, NLTUA, no updates. We didn't have a meeting. I guess, Jared, you did go on the plant tour.
yeah,
Edwin, you were there too, I heard.
Yes, I was.
All right.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Okay. I couldn't make it due to work commitment, but hoping to get up there, get a look with Mark.
I would do it again too, I really get something out of it every time.
There's a lot.
No, there's a lot to learn, it's complicated.
All right, and then again, we'll hope to get that capacity report back in early first of the year. So. Okay, that ends the liaison reports. That brings us to item 5, which is our discussion items. First up, we have the UHY invoice, item A. Manager provided some background in his memorandum. As he noted that myself, the manager, and some staff met with UHY along with our attorney Ross to discuss, I think, some of the issues that occurred during the auditing process that led to this overage. And it did seem like there was a recognized that there was some breakdown in communication on both ends. Obviously, their agreement talked about, providing an additional scope of work and charges beyond the original, which did not occur. In fact, the signed agreement that our village manager and attorney tried for weeks to get wasn't provided until our actual meeting. They did highlight one portion here, and it does note that our invoices for these additional fees will be rendered each month as work progresses and are payable on presentation, which Jared said he hadn't been able to find any communication that would have provided that. The other thing I did point out to the UHY is that they kept saying that the communication with Jim Dyer was what kind of authorized them to continue this work. And what I noted to them is that the village manager does not have the authority to increase spending. And by their own agreement, they were not, in compliance with that by not bringing us the second. So the manager has provided a recommendation here. UHY's proposal was to pay half of the 25,000. But it looks like our recommendation here from our manager would be to pay half of the discounted invoice. So essentially we'd be paying about 33% of the extended billing that they provided to us. And so I guess with my comments, if any council members would like to say anything else, or
Ross, I just wanted to note that Ross is on the call.
yeah, I saw that. Any inputs?
So is it that the 8,000 is the recommended, or have they, is there any indication they'll accept that settlement offer?
They offered 12.5, and so what I'm suggesting is
We counter it with 8.
counter offer.
Okay. I think I mean, I think that's reasonable. Apparently there were some, if. It should have been documented, but yeah, Jim didn't have the authority, plus there's no written record of any increase. I mean, we're gonna see this again, where. You know, that there's supposed to be a vote, that's what we're here for. When we spend money, and if nobody voted on these increases, it's kind of like. You know, in my opinion, a little bit buyer beware, you know, like if UHY didn't. Get any confirmation that these overruns had been approved by the council, they were kind of proceeding at their own risk. That said, they may have been given some kind of false impression from Jim that, oh yeah, well, I'll get this approved by the council retroactively, and then Jim left, and there's no physical record of it. We don't want to screw them over, but at the same time, it wasn't real professional on their part. So yes, I'm talking a lot about saying I do support making this settlement offer. I would say sticking firm, holding firm and waiting for them to sue us for it would be. You know, we might win, but it's not the most fair outcome. I think this would be a reasonable outcome.
Yeah, I think it's an appropriate counter offer.
Yeah.
Laura?
I just wanna say, I mean, to me. I know that it's possible Jim had conversations that other people weren't at, but we do have staff that was at those, so I mean, we kind of do know what was said, and it wasn't a formal thing. It's really frustrating to me, because I feel like this is like a consultant go-to to have a contract that isn't, I mean, like, we don't even have a real contract, right? We have a bid or something,
We have, it's a proposed, the cost was based on a proposal, and I think.
and it doesn't say time and material, right? Like, this is the same thing that happened with Wade Trim with the zoning. And then we came in with a big bill at the end. We didn't do it we didn't follow our own writing, that we got to decide what was in there. I mean, they decided what they wanted it to say. Gave it to us, they didn't follow that. I mean, it's really frustrating to me, because I don't anticipate that we're gonna wanna work with them again. That we're gonna look for a different audit firm, I assume, because this isn't the only issue we have with them.
Yeah, we're not doing business. With them.
And it's not like we want to sue them or we want them to sue us, but it's really endlessly frustrating to have consultants consistently come in and then say they need to charge more, and they didn't have any terms or agreements that actually back that up.
Oh, it kind of
Like, is it the only time they've worked with government? Like, I mean, like, I think they do this regularly. To me, they definitely should know that they needed to have more documentation and approvals than just, sure, yeah, now we've more than doubled the bid. Like,
Well,
Well, it also invalidates the bidding process. I mean, if you're gonna come in with a low bid on something, which has happened to this village before, I can think of a certain ditch project. Where you're the low bid, and then you keep having these increases and overruns and increases and overruns. Till the point where you're twice as high as the high bid in the end, which did happen on a ditch project we had many years ago, and with certain someone who's on the agenda today. Why have a bidding process if we're gonna allow this? Because it basically lets them come in with the lowest bid, knowing that they can't do it for that price, and then knowing they're gonna get an overrun later. So yeah, I think it's bad business on their part. I think offer the settlement and show them the door and say, you know, thanks, but no thanks, you're not welcome in Northport.
Jim's Ross, I think.
yeah, Ross, did you have anything to add while you're on?
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Not too much. I mean, I think y'all have covered most of it. I guess what I would say is that the proposed kind of half of the discounted amount offer that was included in this agenda summary was not discussed at that meeting that we had with the UHY representatives. What we did ask for at that meeting, and I think this is probably part of some of the discussions that you all have had, but obviously if either side was to try to go to court, I think we would pretty much get, you know, you're going to eat up a bunch of whatever these dollars are in terms of what you might save on the front end in trying to litigate that, either in defending it or in bringing an affirmative case on their part. So there's definitely some time value of money when it comes to, litigation and, the opportunity to try to save, the entirety of that fee. I don't think is realistically possible. As Mr. Ottenwest indicated, there was a presentation at the meeting of a written agreement that was signed by Mr. Dyer that had not previously been provided to our office. I mean, I think their suggestion was that Mr. Dyer had a copy of it, and we don't know whether that's the case. I believe Mr. Ottenwest had said that there wasn't a copy of that agreement that was provided. So that did go beyond what was initially presented as a sort of bid proposal, quote unquote, that detailed their fees. But I think in this instance, they definitely went above and beyond, and we discussed some of the itemized fees that they included, which was, travel for 3 different people up and down, the state, and some, lunches and other items that really ballooned those costs up, I think, beyond what was contemplated. And I agree with Trustee Harper's comments that you really are sort of undermining the operation of a bid process if the practice is to sort of submit a low bid and then come in later with high overages and additions to that amount. So I agree with those sort of political considerations. I think when it comes to this particular resolution, the way that we left it with them was that we believed that the amount was excessive, and we thought that even the discounted amount, the 16,000, was excessive. And we told them if they, put forward some sort of fee that was less than that, was reasonable, that we would present that to the council for potential consideration and approval. So the amount that they came back with in response to that request was the 12.5. I'm confident that if they received the 12.5, that this matter would be completely over, and all parties could walk away without any fear or anticipated continuing, litigation or any sort of dispute over this. With respect to a sort of counter offer of just under $8,300. I don't know how they will react to that. It's possible that they would accept it, but still, they could submit an additional invoice for, roughly $4,000 or whatever the gap is. It's possible that they would take this and just walk away as well. So I can't discount that possibility, but just from the perspective of having participated in that conversation, I think the expectation was that they would submit an offer for an amount less than the 16 that they had asked for, and that if that was looked upon favorably by the council, then that would be paid without too much question, and then the parties could go their separate ways. And so with a new amount introduced in this agenda summary of just under 8,300, I can't anticipate how they will react to that. But that's, obviously within the discretion of the council and how you all want to proceed, and how you see the amounts that were laid out in their invoice. And we can, go through that if you'd like, or have any further discussions on that point. But that's a long way of saying that, the 12.5 would definitively end it from my perspective, based on the content of our conversations. And I'm not quite sure how they'll react to an $8,300 offer. But if that's the will of the council, then we can submit that and see what happens.
Thanks, Ross.
I'd like to point out, to make Ross's point the other way, for them to take litigation, they have costs too. If they want to litigate over $4,000, it's gonna cost them more than $4,000. It doesn't hurt, I mean, there's no harm done in putting this to them and making, they can't saying this settles everything, whatever you say it, that it's final, this is final services, final payment for all services rendered. And they can take it, and if they don't take it, then we'll still have another chance to reconsider before anybody sues anybody. So it doesn't hurt anything to offer the 82 and change. So I think we should just go with Ross's suggestion. I like it. That's what I would do.
Okay, so
That's it.
yeah,
What would our potential cost be
Here,
if we
suggestion.
were to see this through in court, like maximum,
Oh, it would be,
like absurd, right?
Yeah.
How much?
but neither side's gonna want, it's gonna cost them just as much as it'll cost us.
Like 100,000 or
Oh, no,
50? Like,
no, but 20,
Way more than what we owe.
more than what we owe.
And more than what they want, more than what they're
Yeah.
asking would be my guess. And I mean, it's not good for their reputation, I would think, for them to do that.
It's not a
Or
good
vice
idea to
versa.
supply
Like,
us.
I don't think that that is a good look that they're looking for either, and I'm not saying that that's why we should do it. I think that the whole thing is crazy that they are doing it this way and that they expect it to just be paid. So to me, I agree. I feel like if we're gonna pay something, I would offer the lower half amount, and if they say no, we want you to go back to them and ask for the 12, then that's what would happen, and if not, then we've settled it for what we feel is more fair.
My gut feeling is they'll take it. I think everybody's tired of this and they're wasting their time negotiating. So my gut feeling is they're accountants, they know how to write things off, you know?
Is there a way to add stipulations so that if we give them the $8,000, they can bill us for more? as
Yeah,
Ross
that's
suggested?
easy. Yeah.
Okay.
That's just, this amount represents all, due and payable, whatever. I can't do it off the top of my head, but I can definitely do it.
Ross is smiling and nodding. now.
Yeah.
It can be done.
He knows exactly what I'm
Yeah.
talking about.
It's his expertise.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounds like there's some consensus here to offer the reduced amount of the 82.95 and to UHY to end this issue and see where it goes from there.
Okay, I'll bring back a document to that effect for approval, get with Ross and put something together, so we'll have it for action. You can say, well, now that I think about it. Well, we'll see, I'll knock heads with Ross and see. We may have some discussion before we get to a formal action.
Do you wanna just give the authority to Jared and Ross to make this decision? Because like,
I think a motion is in order and not.
Yeah, I
necessarily-
agree.
You know what I mean, to
Yeah.
authorize the amount and authorize me to settle it.
yeah, why don't we just authorize Jared with the advice of Ross to settle this matter in the amount not to exceed $12,500.
And I can bring that as action to
Yeah.
the regular meeting.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that gives you flexibility. You can even do some back and forth with them, maybe get it down to 10, I don't know.
I see,
Haggle.
I see where you're going with. it.
Yeah.
We'll-
Yeah,
We'll
just-
bring that for action, so. there's
Because,
motion.
because negotiating with a council is really awkward and time consuming and like every 2 weeks it's just, forget it. We gotta give somebody the authority to negotiate.
Well, I think they wanted to come to the meeting, right? Like, they had wanted to present themselves.
Yeah.
It's just that that isn't the route that you guys felt was appropriate.
I
So,
guess,
yeah,
yeah.
Yeah.
And this is a public meeting.
yeah,
A public open session, so
Yeah.
they're welcome to be here as well.
yeah. They're just not, right?
They might
None of them- I mean, I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know who all those people are.
Yeah. I have a question not related to this, but related to the audits. So when is our next audit due? It's next year we have to get an audit again,
Mhm.
right? Cause this was last year and it's every 2 years. So when do you need to start looking? Cause didn't last time we have a hard time finding somebody?
We had 3 or
Okay.
4, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, in the early part of 26, we should start doing that.
Okay. All right, so we'll have something on the agenda for action at next meeting in 2 weeks. Regarding the UHY invoice. Okay, item B, the township special assessment discrepancy. Also involves UHY to a degree. And again, Jared's breakdown here. Essentially, there was a discrepancy of almost $27,000. And that the township would owe to the village, and now that amount has been reduced to about $500. Citing basically a clerical error by the former township clerk and not marking some sewer assessments paid, but remembering 13 years later which assessments those were. And the recommendation is to write a letter to the township stating the village's perspective. And I guess we can either pursue the 26,000 farther if we feel necessary, or take the 500 and move on with it. I was just appalled that, the other thing that I think we were all included in the emails, that there is no documentation to go back to 2008 or 2010 to identify which these parcels were that were paid. And not marked as paid, and then in 2014 or 2024.
It's
Oh, I remember, we forgot to mark those.
kind of the way things were done.
It's just, yeah. So, we did, the letter from the township treasurer was in the packet. Stating that they don't believe that this money is owed. And, I guess I'm just interested to hear what other council members have to say regarding the matter, or how they think we should proceed with that.
I mean, Jared, what are our options? I think you said, like, we can still. I mean, public shaming, like, we're not gonna sue them. And, we can just say, hey, the township really kind of screwed the village on this, and they don't want to make it good. That's up to them. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. But as far as taking any action, what can we do? I mean, nothing. I don't see what we can do.
Laura?
Yeah, I agree. Like, I mean, we're not gonna sue them because again, the dollar amount as well as that's just not helpful to the relationship, obviously.
That doesn't help anybody.
But no, I mean, it's just not helpful. I think it's unless, I mean, their stance is that they've looked into it as much as they can look into it, and there's nothing else that they could find, right? Like and unless I mean, what can we do? Like, unless we have something specific that we know is there, which we don't know that because we don't have access to all that. I don't know what else we could tell them as a response that they have to do. But I definitely think documenting in some way that we do not agree with the letter they sent us, so that in the future, if somebody were looking back, you would understand that, like, that wouldn't be the end of the story. There would be an additional letter that's like us saying we don't agree with this assessment, we don't find these facts to be convincing, but if you guys don't have anything further to find, then I guess we gotta eat it. I don't know.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
No, you're
cut
fine.
you off. It's a habit I have. First of all, it seems to me like their officer was more at fault for bad record keeping than the village was. Is that a fair assessment? This is pretty much Denny's blue.
Yeah, well, I don't know all the individuals involved, frankly, but the township clerk is actually under statute responsible for maintaining
Oh,
the special assessment role. But the treasurer and the clerk are both responsible for assessing based on that role.
but their inability.
But it is those township,
Yeah, they're the ones who
yeah.
didn't do their due diligence in record keeping. Sounds like to me. What if we offer, say, hey, look, mistakes were made on both sides. We probably should have picked up on it sooner. Like, why don't we split the baby? Why won't you just like, okay, you guys, we think you screwed up. You think we screwed up. Somebody screwed up. We don't want to use the taxpayer money of it's the same taxpayers paying, to sue each other. That would be a really disservice to government. But how about we just split it? Say, hey, somebody screwed up, let's just cut it in half. Can we propose that to Barb?
I can propose it, but based on our conversations and the letter, especially the letter and the way that UHY presented the information, they're convinced that they have shown conclusive evidence that the shortfall, the discrepancy, was the result of parcels that had been paid,
Alright,
not correctly marked paid. So if you believe that, and
Yeah.
you're convinced of that, why would I split it? Paying half of that.
yeah, okay, and
So
also
that's kind of the other side. to
keeping the
that.
big picture in mind, it's Peter paying Paul. I mean, the taxpayers pay for both of us, and we didn't know this money was owed to us really. It's not gonna mess up our budget. This is like, would have been sort of a windfall. well, maybe not a windfall, but it would be money we didn't know we were owed.
It also has a direct impact on how we, increase rates to
Well,
cover the shortfall
Mhm.
in what the special assessment can't cover.
oh, that's true.
Okay, and the township has used ad valorem revenue, including from the village, to help offset that shortfall.
Which I
So
don't think is legal.
there's, I think, like an imbalance
Yeah.
in that sense.
Right.
There's an issue of fairness, I guess. But that's what it is, and I'm not suggesting that this would necessarily resolve that. But I think those should be considered, those issues.
My question, I'm just trying to be sure that I fully understand, like, so the way that this was discovered was the audit. Is that correct? Like they
Yeah.
discovered this, or you knew this was already there and it just wasn't addressed?
They took our, if I may.
Yeah.
They took our past audit, which gave the assessment balance at that time, and then worked down the payments that we've received since then. So with that information, then they asked for a report on what the current assessment roll balance was. And it had changed by this number. Yeah,
Because they had realized the mistake, or they realized the mistake after it was pointed out to them by their auditors?
yeah, I guess it happened during the conversion to their new BSNA.
Okay,
But it was our audit process that identified the shortfall.
Yeah.
yeah,
And
so the
then-
number was there and they probably didn't, like, it was their conversion that caused this discrepancy to be realized.
Mhm.
But the numbers were there before, it's not like they weren't, it's just, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know exactly how the conversion from the .NET to the cloud software, it coincided with the way that those parcels were marked. That's what they've said. But I don't know. You know, exactly how or what might cause that.
Well,
But I do just wanna say that, you know, the village residents do pay a higher debt service here in the village for our sewer. And so just to reiterate what Jared said.
Yeah.
You know, so,
The way that they're paid is different, so that
Yeah.
there's
Mhm.
actually a bit of an unfairness tilted towards township
yeah.
to our customers.
will they use their general fund,
Yes.
which it says right in the ordinance they're not allowed to do, and I don't know why they keep doing it, because to me it's patently illegal. They've been doing it for almost 10 years.
Village taxpayers are paying into that fund.
Yeah, and those taxpayers do pay it. Well, it's unfortunate, but I don't see what we can do, except for say we're gonna continue to disagree with your findings but that's all we can do is say, well, we're very upset.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Agree to disagree, and Laura and I talked about that, and I agree that I think there needs to be some kind of statement so that it doesn't, and including a public conversation like this, so it's not just, oh, what happened to that issue? Oh, it just, went away. I think it's important to at least just.
Especially
state the
because it's not
position.
actually resolved, it is just literally like, well, we think that we proved it,
Yeah,
is this answer. And so we're not gonna pay. Yeah, I just. I don't know,
Right, with limited documentation to
Yeah.
actually support that
Yeah.
finding,
yeah,
or their opinion.
we haven't really had a chance to respond either, it's just the context of it is that. We had a meeting in August with the managing director of UHY, Michael Cool, who came, he did the audit for the township and he came and did the follow-up work. Looking into the discrepancy, and so Joni and I met with the township officials and Michael Cool. To discuss their findings, and he presented all this information. And we had a lot of questions and I think good critical feedback, but there was never any direct reply to that. We didn't have a chance to really provide some kind of formal response. We were participating in the meeting, and then more recently, we received the letter. And that just, the tone of the letter seemed like, well, that's the end of it now. We didn't really get a chance to fully vet our concerns.
yeah, it's a little disappointing that there isn't more willingness to just have a conversation about it, or,
all we can do is like, send them a letter saying we're very unhappy.
Yeah.
I really don't see.
Are you okay with me? Drafting a letter, circulating it by email so that you can have a look, give me feedback. And then I can send it as the signature, you could.
Absolutely, and then I think we should publish it.
You could approve a letter
Yeah, I
if you
think we
like.
definitely should.
Yeah.
Okay, I just.
No,
I
that's a
think
great
it's
way to
different
handle
ways
it,
to-
no, and I think it should be published, and I think. The voters who vote for the township officials and the township supervisor who also vote for us. Should be aware that the township is refusing to pay this, that we think they owe them. I think that's a. Like I said, public shaming was the first thing that came to my mind, and that's the best way to do it, and. I support that idea 100%.
Pretty much every letter that I write is a public record.
Well, yeah, of course.
I just wanna put that out there.
No, I know,
You
but
can-
but
You
some.
can share it as you wish.
Yeah, but we can actually promote, I'm thinking
Circulation.
Facebook,
I'm not.
well, I am. And you can't stop me.
I like working with the township. We have many things that we work with the township on,
Mhm.
obviously, so I also keep that in mind.
Yeah,
For
yeah,
me, that's part of why it's disappointing, because I feel like on
Yeah,
this, it
that's-
feels like they're not wanting
I
to
get-
work on it. They're
no
just like.
feeling of
"Mm."
cooperation from them. I mean, and
I
no,
feel that they feel they have, you know,
I think they would say that we
Yeah.
have, and that was the purpose of our meeting.
yeah,
Now, does that mean that we feel heard?
yeah.
And not necessarily, and I also think that we get to a point where we're looking for the documentation. And if it's just not there. It's not there. And, no one can, I don't think anyone can absolutely conclude with certainty what they've provided in their findings letter. I think they can do that to some degree of certainty. It's not 100%, as far as I'm concerned, because there's some crucial pieces missing in terms of assigning. Special assessments to individual parcels and saying they were paid or not paid in 2010.
Well, you could pick any year on those special assessment rolls. Our original 2006 special assessment for the average residential home, our payments were all exactly the same. So to my point to the auditor during that presentation was if you're just gonna choose any delinquent amount paid from the county, you could select any year and say, well, it's in there,
mhm,
you got paid.
Yeah. Because the documentation presented shows a lump sum amount for these parcels. Not which parcels paid or did not pay.
all right, well, let's proceed with a letter.
Alright, I'll do that outside of the council meeting, circulate it and send.
All right, thank you for that. Next item is C, sign ordinance. The draft copy is in the Dropbox. A lot of words to read. But
There's,
29 pages. huh?
yeah, it's a doozy. There's a lot to cover when you're working on sign ordinances. A lot of recent case law, including from the past 15 years or so, that needs to be considered and ensure that the ordinance is compliant with that. If you like what you see so far, my next step would be to pare down some of the language, make it a little easier to work with. And then also, I definitely want to review this with legal counsel, even though I know there may be some time and additional cost involved. But this is the kind of ordinance that I really think deserves that attention. And I don't want to rush it. If you want to come back and revisit this again, great. But I think this is a good draft, and I always prefer to have way more in it than not enough, and then pare it back.
Well, yeah. Sure.
yeah,
This, and I would also like to say that this mirrors what's in the zoning ordinance already, including things like dark sky regulations, prohibitions on illumination, some of those key features. But then it also revises some of the regulations that are currently in the zoning ordinance That I don't think would be upheld with challenge because of First Amendment grounds. So there are several regulations in the zoning ordinance now that should be removed, and that's what this ordinance does. So in adopting this, you would also repeal those sections of the zoning ordinance, and that's why that's referenced in the table that I put there.
Yeah, thanks for the table. It made it a lot easier than going through and seeing,
Yeah.
different letters, scratched out words and stuff. It just
I know
really,
what you mean.
Laura, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions. So I understand that that it's replacing the sign stuff in zoning, so nothing goes back in zoning though, is that correct? Cause this is now gonna be a village ordinance and nothing goes back in there. Okay, and then, so because we're revising the zoning, does that have to have a public hearing for the zoning ordinance? Because it's being amended by having something removed, or you don't have to because it's repealing part of it, or?
I think it may need that, yes.
So adopting this then will have to be followed with us amending zoning, or we have to do them at the same time?
I will double check with the planning and zoning and.
I just don't want the R2S problem.
Yeah.
Can, even though it's different,
Right.
but like the
Yeah,
issue where we didn't fix the zoning at the same
Yeah.
time.
yeah. Whenever we're making amendments to the zoning ordinance, we need to reference the planning and zoning enabling act, make sure that process is followed.
Then
And so, yes.
if there are signs currently that are illuminated or flashing or doing different things, are they grandfathered through? Or then now because this is a village ordinance, it's a problem?
No, it would be grandfathered.
Yeah,
Yeah, and there's a section.
it did say anything,
Yeah.
anything after this is approved would be considered
Yeah.
grandfather.
And there are a couple, I believe,
There are,
and that's
that's why I
always,
was asking.
yep, that's always a little bit of a
And
catch.
some of them's been, yeah.
This,
so-
this section on illuminated signage.
Yeah.
Is more detailed.
Yeah, I looked at it, I read through it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because I've heard that feedback,
yep,
that
so,
if we could do it again,
Oh, you got
we
someone
would
walking
want
in.
that.
No,
there's someone walking in.
that was Laura asked a question. I wondered if, because this is gonna be, as we just stated, this will be a village ordinance, not,
Yeah,
something, so it doesn't need to go back to planning, but what is in the will be repealed by approving this.
yeah,
Okay, just so I've got it all my.
Well, that's what I'm trying to clarify, though. No, he is gonna have to look into it and see, because just approving this approves this, but usually when you change zoning, you have to have a public hearing for a zoning amendment.
yeah.
To amend the zoning ordinance as a separate thing, so that's why I was trying to clarify, do we have to do two things? And the council has to do that too, if it has to be done.
Yes.
It's not a planning commission thing, it's right, the public hearing is the public hearing at zone, at village, or it's at planning?
I need to take a look again. I think it's actually usually at the planning.
Yeah, I think the public hearing is at a planning meeting, and then the
Yeah.
actual adoption is the council.
I
Yeah,
think that may only apply for mapping and so, but that's what I need to look into.
Yeah.
Give me a response on that, but we'll make sure. I just wanted to start the discussion because planning commission says. Does the village council want to have a standalone? We talked about it. You said, yeah, go ahead, draft the standalone.
well, and it's much easier to enforce as a village ordinance than a zoning, correct? I mean, because as a zoning, it's mostly when people are applying to do something new. Versus,
I think it's similar. I think it's more of a preference. I can see it both ways.
okay,
I like it as a standalone.
me too, I'm in favor of it
Yeah.
being a village ordinance for sure. I just was trying to understand the logistics of what steps need to happen and be sure it's not the zoning map R2S problem that we've got going on.
For sure.
All right, so then the plan would be to take this, review it with legal counsel and bring us back up the second draft.
Yeah,
Sounds good to me. Appreciate the work you put into putting this together.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that we need to spend this time and money on a sign ordinance for a town that doesn't really have a sign problem right now. I mean, I might have one of the bigger signs. It's not that big, and it's not lit up.
And lit after 11 p.m.
The lights burned out and I just left them burned out. It's no longer illuminated.
Oh no, shows how much I'm paying attention.
No, I don't care.
All right, Okay, so. If there's any other discussion on the sign ordinance. We'll move on to the property update, potential next steps for High Street and Seventh Street. Again, manager provided a small summary of what's going on. And wants to see if there's any want from the council to move forward with what would be some, renderings for the property to kind of get us a scope of what we might like to see there. This obviously is not anything as far as, design work or site plan analysis. I think this is more just in terms of like something that we can take a look at, similar to what we saw at the first housing meeting, like those 3 duplexes and ADUs that they had shown on West Street. Something that's just a visual representation that certainly does not commit the council to doing anything that we're looking at. It's just a way to get some options on what we'd like to see. And we did get some feedback from that meeting we had in April. The Housing North did have different housing types up that people put sticky notes on if they liked them. I mean, there wasn't a lot of voting, I can tell you that. But anyway, I think, this is sort of a good next step, in my opinion, is to just, seeing what's gonna fit in that neighborhood. And I can just say, I was out of town this weekend in Ann Arbor and the suburbs of Detroit. And, I was walking around Ann Arbor, there's some really attractive duplexes that could be built, or, single family homes of smaller scale that I think, would lend themselves to these 2 sites that we have the authority to do something with. So if anybody's got any comments or discussion, or Jared, anything to?
I would like to add that I've been talking to, as I've been preparing for the meeting, and I met a couple of design professionals at the housing summit. Talked to them about working on this. I wanted to get some idea about cost. I talked to one local firm that suggested a price of just over 5,000 for doing renderings on one site, which I think is actually, when you look at the cost for these consultants, it's a very good price. And another firm that I talked to, I think would be more in the $15,000 to $20,000 range, but they would do both sites. And I think a little bit their scope that they presented to me, and I can share these with you, but it was a little more detailed. There were a few more options for each site, so they wouldn't just do one rendering. They could come back and do 2 or 3 or 4 different iterations on the same site, and give you different options for what type of rendering you might prefer to see. So I just wanted to give you some idea about costs, not that you're committing to anything, but just what that would cost. And then I also have reached out a while ago to my old grad program, because I wanted to see if I just did with student work. It's not going to be as professional, but it's much lower cost.
Well, first of all, we're talking about West Street and 7th Street, not Recycle Center, obviously, because that's not ours. But I thought we kind of didn't we decide that West Street wasn't going to be suitable, or?
Talk about
High Street.
High Street by the
By the
children's center.
children's center, the 100 and whatever feet.
And that is more feasible? That's what we're thinking.
Yeah, I mean, well, so the village leases the building only
Yeah,
in the lease to the school.
Yeah.
Who then turns around and subleases it
to children, to Dandelion.
Dandelion Center. So we could split the northern portion of that site and get about 100 feet of frontage. In that zoning district, you have a minimum.
Okay,
You have a minimum lot width of 50 feet. So you could conceivably have 2 building sites. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to include pictures with my memo, because it's got decent topography, it's buildable.
Okay.
And it would require some tree removal, but I think it's at least worth looking at.
so when we had a meeting at the high school, the renderings that I really liked of Buster Dane, sorry, I didn't say that. But, and the renderings for West Street were done by a student. And I thought they were very, very well done and very adequate. So I'm really kind of interested in going the student route, if that's possible. I think you saw from some of the public correspondence that we're gonna get pushback, from some members of the public if we spend tax dollars on these renderings because we are not in the development business and they're ultimately gonna benefit whoever the developer is. And we won't get that money paid back to us. I do really want to see them happen because I think it gives the public an idea of what we are envisioning. And it discredits a lot of the misinformation out there, and there's plenty of it, let me tell you. And so, a picture's worth 1,000 words, and so I do think it's very important for this to happen. But I do think we have to really watch what we pay for it, because we're gonna get scrutinized for it, for the cost. So, if you can reach out to your old grad program, I love that idea. If that's not gonna work, I don't think 5,000 or 10,000 for two is, I still think it's money well spent. We're gonna get, we're gonna get yelled at for it by some people, but I think it needs to happen for this to go forward, because there's just too much misinformation out there and misperception on what we're trying to do. I mean, people are thinking, like, I grew up in Chicago, but they keep thinking Cabrini Green, and which was an absolute disaster. If anybody from Chicago remembers, and it's not gonna be like that, and people need to see what it can be. And so it's super important for public relations to do it. I just would like to see it done as cheaply as possible.
Look,
Yeah, I think it's really important that we figure out a way to do it too. I agree. I think doing it with students would be fine, because I don't see why
enough.
it needs to be this really high level. That's not where we're at, where it's not like this is necessarily that exactly is gonna be built. And to me, I feel like, yes, there's public comment that we have received about spending money or being developers, but I think that we also have public comment that says, how do we control what the developers put in? And we don't have any control over developers and all these things. I think the only way you have control or give them direction is, I guess, pictures, because we already have had where we told them what we wanted and they came back with something that was absolutely not that 2 times. So I think that, like, having an example of what we're actually talking about that we agree is like, yeah, this would be okay, don't do something totally different than this, would be helpful in narrowing down and ensuring that if there is a developer that's doing it, not us, a developer, that they're, in line with what we want as a community to see being built by that developer, so that it's, not something that doesn't fit. I mean, we can't do it both, but we can't not be, you gotta give direction somehow.
I think that this step in the process is inevitable. And whether you do it now,
Yeah.
or whether a developer is doing it in order to come up with an agreement, partnering with the village for what they would actually do.
That's actually a really good point.
If a developer is saying right here, saying, oh, you want me to do a duplex over here? Well, how do we know? What's it gonna look like? Does it fit on that site? They're gonna have to do something like that anyways, to come to agreement with the village about what's gonna go into a development agreement, and compel
You're
them
right.
to actually do what they're gonna do.
That's a second step down the road that I hadn't really thought of, but you make a very good point. Why don't we, to move forward, put it on the agenda for next meeting, to authorize a certain amount of money to be spent, on this? Maybe it could be up to 15,000, but if Jared can get his grad program to do it for less, great.
Look, here's what I've found so far, I reached out to the grant program, it's been a while now too,
Yeah.
they post these opportunities.
Yeah.
On their internal, site, and I've been in contact with 2 students. One of them kind of turned into a ghost, and the other one just started doing some work ahead of time, even though we were just talking about it. He said, well, I'm excited about it, started doing some of the work.
That's okay.
It needed a lot of refinement.
Okay.
It was not real close to what I would say is ready for public
Alright.
purposes. So I think it's probably worth spending a little bit of money. I think it's worth the 5,000 to 6,000. And I've got a scope I can bring back at the next meeting, so a not to exceed number.
But aren't we getting a deal on 2? So shouldn't we do both at the same time? Or no?
If you want to,
What do you think we should
let me talk to them and get a
Okay.
scope revised. So that you know, I can tell you exactly that it's both parcels for this amount, not to exceed.
Yeah, 'cause I think we want both partials.
Probably, but yeah, but the main thing is let's get it on the agenda for, to approve, money for, on the next meeting. I like the fact that we don't make a lot of financial decisions at these meetings unless it has to be done, and I think that's good, we set it up for. Yeah, give some notice that we're gonna be voting on this, so,
Right. A 19-minute meeting.
yeah, great. Can't wait, yeah, Pam here.
Like that, something. My only concern, I think what we should add, is the fair market value of the parcel, because I spoke with, Yarrow Brown, and it seems like we need more affordable housing units than these are our only two properties, than those two can provide. And I think if we look at what we could sell it for, Elizabeth Malik said about 800,000, you know, potentially more, potentially less. And, you know, maybe in February, when the Land Division Act amendment comes into effect, there's gonna be farm property that's gonna be split up into, you know, 1 acre parcels, and using that money to more effectively build. Because these demand numbers, I mean, they seem low, but they're constantly increasing as well. So, yeah, I think that we should, I really like the idea, but I think we should definitely get a fair market value, just so that it's on the table. Because does anyone know, like, if we max out both properties, how many?
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the 7th Street parcel, that's totally different now because of the park designation. Can't be sold or disposed of without a referendum. That's still an option, it would require a referendum. So the number, like Betsy referenced, was from the appraisals done for the mod court 4 parcel design. So that's no longer the number we can use for 7th Street.
But what about the vacant land?
He's saying like the 1.2.
Is gonna be a much lower figure.
Well, yeah, and like, so what I saw is that there's a house that's sold on Fifth Street, I believe. It was like 4,000 acres, sold for 125,000. And like, if we extrapolated that to the acreage of parcel one, that, you know, it's not gonna be 1-to-1, but it came out to 1.3 million. And, you know, I think that is, you know, if potentially the market value is gonna be somewhere near that, you know, we should.
I don't think it'll be near 1.3.
I don't think so. There's a house
the
on
thing
that
is,
street
and-
right
and
next
there's
to it that is like
continuation, too.
$600,000.
Professional appraisals are expensive. We've had them done before down on 7th Street. I think it's been done 2 or 3 times now. It was done most recently when we considered the land swap, but that was on the whole thing. So that's no longer valid, but they're expensive and they're temporary. The market changes so fast that they're inaccurate after a few months. So you pay a lot of money for a professional appraisal, and we're talking in the thousands of dollars for a professional appraisal, maybe more. And it's a piece of paper that has a very limited shelf life, like months. So I'm not a big fan of getting appraisals, the professional appraisal done anytime soon on either one of them.
How about West Street though? West Street is.
Yes,
one that we
okay,
talked
yeah,
about.
because we did talk about
We talked
selling.
about it and it was just left as.
Well, what depends on which part. The part we decided would not make good for affordable housing. Yeah, we should be
Right.
selling that. We should be actively trying to sell that soon.
So
in my opinion.
the way that we left it at the last work session when we discussed that was, yes, we're open to selling it. This is what I heard,
Right.
but we're not gonna do anything specifically at this moment.
Well,
But to,
We could get an appraisal
Why
for
not?
West Street, which would give us an idea of, and obviously the properties aren't 1-to-1. I mean, the 7th Street parcel is. I mean, it's clear, so you don't have to cut a lot of trees down, but there's some work's gotta be done to that site versus, you know, 100 feet by whatever the lot size, is it 100 by 100 or are those Wakazoo lots 100 by 120 or 160?
for 130 deep,
Okay, that's what I thought, yeah. So we could do that. I mean, we could get the appraisal for West Street, so we've got an idea of that. And
Sure.
And, I mean,
well, I think that's the one we're probably gonna sell. I mean, yeah, and so that we should be, in my opinion, I'm only speaking for myself, I don't speak for the council. I think we should be moving forward on selling that as soon as possible.
and some of that revenue we could put
Yeah.
towards these renderings
At
and
least.
whatever. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
hopefully a lot more than that.
Exactly.
I mean, we could buy some sidewalks.
There we go.
But if we, let's just theoretically, if we maxed out both of the parcels with units, like how many units would we get? And would we be reaching the, you know,
So
suggestions from the nonprofits?
Well, I think for like a two family, you gotta have 7,000 square feet, 8. And it's like the 50 by 130 just hits it or doesn't, right?
It just doesn't.
Okay, it's gotta be like, I think 60 by 130, it gets you to the 8.
So, yeah,
Um,
about that.
So, so for up there, we'd be looking at probably like 2 single family homes.
Unless the
And
zoning was changed.
unless the zoning was changed.
I was just
And-
gonna say.
And we've got 1
what about
acre,
there?
1.2, which again, could be divided into smaller lots. So we could, potentially get that 8,000 square foot lot, so we could build some 2 family homes down there. I think, going more multifamily. Again, then you get into zoning and, that kind of stuff, but, I mean, so let's say 2, and we built 2 or 3 duplexes down there, so you're looking at 8 units for housing. Which is, literally more than what we have in the village for attainable housing right now. The 4 units on Vincer West, the 2 units on West Street, and the house on Warren. So we would, theoretically double what we've got in the village right now.
Yeah, and like, even if we don't have like an exact number, I mean, you could, it's obvious that like any like more like rural land would be more effective. I mean, there's a property going for like 500,000 and it's 5 acres. And, if that's what we could sell 7th Street or, the Children's Center property, then, we're gonna get more like effective units like out of it. Because it seems like we're gonna be hitting around what, 17 if we maxed out both parcels. And, that's about like half the number that Laura cited in the last meeting, said around like 30, 35.
Yeah.
And that's it, there's nothing else that we have, right, like that's.
Well, I mean,
that's
there are other lots that we tiered. I mean, that's part of why I've had the discussion and asked for, a consensus to see about doing renderings for something on the Wakazoo parking lot site, because that's definitely like, for me, one of the only spots you could do apartments, and based on the square footage. And if you had parking on the bottom, or if you didn't, that gives you more if you don't. Like, it's potential to have multiple units, because it would be apartments and not houses. To me, I don't feel like sending it out to the rural or the township to solve because they have more space is an acceptable option to me, because we want people in the village, in the town, in our district, as well. Like, I want attainable housing here. And yes, I would love it to be rural also, but I don't think that should mean that we can't do it here. So to me, I still think it's really important to do it here. And that's, for me, I would love to see renderings of what we could do on the Wakazoo lot also. I would love that. Because again, that's a spot where we could do a different style of housing and it would still fit in, as opposed to if you were to try and do a 3-story apartment building on 7th Street. That obviously wouldn't be something that people are interested in hearing about for the most part. But I think that we can't do everything at once. I agree that we should look at maybe getting an appraisal for West, because if developers aren't interested in developing it because of the elevations on it and everything, then I don't see what value it's giving us. And we're not going to turn it into a park, and we're not going to do this, and we're not going to do that. I mean, what is it doing for us when it could, again, give us revenue that allows us to do look closer at some of these other things?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars, probably.
Yeah.
And can I just
You may.
speak up, because the point that people make about the village donating property to a developer instead of selling it is, doesn't pencil out directly. You have to look at the bigger picture, because you have to look at what the village gains, not just in terms of dollars and cents, by providing this land for, and this is what the people, some of the people, the letters that I've seen in some of the public statements are saying, no, you have a fiduciary responsibility to maximize the dollars and cents that come into the village. Well, no, because if we did that, we wouldn't have parks and playground equipment. What we're doing by donating that land is we're making the village better culturally, and with the schools and with vitality, and it helps the businesses and it helps the workforce and the business owners who want to hire people, and everybody else. So there is an unquantifiable benefit that you can't you can't calculate the benefit of the village gets. I'm just saying this for the public. you can't calculate the benefit the village gets by giving this land to a developer for $1, even though it's tightly controlled. The village becomes a better village. This is an investment in our future. And it's a lot longer term investment than if we sold it one time and took that $300,000, or even if it's $1 million and put it in the bank. We're gonna get 10 times that investment back in making this a better place by doing what we're doing. And that's what the people who just say it doesn't pencil out dollars and cents wise, well, it doesn't on a spreadsheet, but you have to look at the incalculable value of a better place to live. And that's what we're here for. And so that's my philosophy, you know, that's my answer to all the people say, you need to sell that and, you know, this and that. No, we don't. We need to make Northport a better place, and this is a great way to do it. And so that's my point, is don't listen to people who say, we're giving away a potential one-time $300,000. I mean, that's just a drop in the bucket that's gone. We're gonna build something that's gonna last, and it's gonna be there, and it's gonna be a place for people to grow. And so you gotta look at it that way. Don't be fooled by this, you know, straight up math accounting. It doesn't pencil out. You can't put a value on having a nicer place to live. So that's.
I mean, I agree with your points. I think affordable housing does like provide that culture that we need. But, you know, I would argue that if we're using like the 7th Street property and also the property that's, you know, 5 acres going for 500,000 on Mill Street, that we can get 3 times as many people. And that's even like more culture, more people that we can fill for our schools, more like workforce, everything.
We can't take that money and buy property outside the village in the township, and you can't trust the township to do anything. We have to work within our ability and within our own jurisdiction. So like saying we could sell that and take the money and push it out of the village limits and buy things where those people won't be down by the water, I'm not down with that. We don't have the ability to control that. We only have the ability to control what we have, and this is what we have, and this is why I firmly believe in what we're doing.
One of the things I think is important too is that there needs to be as you're pointing to, a higher density. And I think that's what the township is actually looking at addressing with the recycling center site, is going with the higher density townhomes. Whereas we're gonna be creating more of this, you know, single family, 2-family homes, so that there's this, you know, hey,
Yeah.
these are renters,
It's different.
these are buyers. And so there's this diversity of housing inventory, rather than trying to just, we obviously we want to get as much density as possible to help affect the most people possible. But doing it at a scalable level where there is this, you know, these different tiers of that is important. And it should be noted that while they haven't really brought anything, you know, Jared has had discussions with somebody who lives in the village, has 5 acres, is looking at doing some development. It wouldn't be in the sewer district, but it's just very preliminary. And so again, one of the reasons I want to keep moving this along, and which is great, is because I think what we are doing is we are leading boldly by taking action and showing that it is important to us. You know, we could just say, hey, this is great, let's do it. And now let's put it on the back burner for a little bit, or let's wait for new community vision, or let's wait for this other guy. No, we realize that it is an issue, and we may not develop both parcels at the same time. Maybe we do, depending on what the developer, whoever we're working with, sees that's feasible. But I think that by addressing it as a village council shows that we are committed to fixing this issue that is not just, you know, affecting our community, but all communities. So I absolutely agree with trying to get as much density as possible, but I think, you know, how can we get the most density out of what we own is what we should be really looking at addressing it. And if there's other ways to get more people on a smaller parcel, then let's encourage those people to do that. Let's support their decisions in those instances. But again, back to Will's point, we have to focus on what we own and what we can, you know, sort of maximize out of that.
There's no way that if we bought something that was in the township that we could have a performance, you know, clause standard that requires them to do certain things. Because I mean, initially when we came up with this property rubric, it was my understanding that we were working with the township to try to come up with, you know, a sort of standard for us to all collaborate and like fix this issue. I don't even know if they have added to that rubric, and
I don't know if they have.
yeah, and like, I was just looking at the properties that they do own. I mean, they don't seem to have much, and, they're building on the recycling center. Sure, that puts a little bit of a dent into the 127 units that they need, but it's not gonna meet like the standard of housing equity within the entirety of like both municipalities. And I'm sure that there's something, I'm sure that there's a way that we can either donate the land to Leelanau Township if they wanna go in with us. We need more, cause I mean, I agree, this like initially is a more like bold action in the short term, but in the long term, we're not meeting the standards or recommendations that were given to us.
We're doing the best.
I feel like that's why we keep going, right? Like this is us, we've been doing this, we are continuing to make progress, we've passed ordinance, that's why they wanted Jared to speak, because Northport is doing so much, right? Like, I mean, to everybody else, we're doing a lot. Even though it may not feel like it to us. And so, I mean, we're doing that. We did the rubric. We have more properties identified. They just weren't the top tier because again, there's only so much that can be done at one time. And it's all being done and, appropriately. We got to facilitate. And that takes a lot. Like there's a lot to look at. There's a lot to think about so that it's not something that, you look back and go, man, I wish we had taken an extra month and thought that through. So to me, just because we're looking, these two, everybody consensus wise has decided are the ones they would prefer to look at. If we look at those first, that doesn't mean that once we've done that, we're done. I mean, to me, it's a continuing effort. This is a long-term thing. This is a long haul. We've been, struggling with this problem for decades. Like we didn't just get here. So to me, we're not going to solve it today, but we got to keep taking these steps. And I don't necessarily disagree that the township wouldn't work with us on something, but these are things that we can directly control and move forward with, so that we can be making that progress instead of just holding out for something that's way bigger, to me, isn't going to solve it. And not everybody was looking for that housing. Like I talked about the last work session. I mean, it's the same thing, like which housing issue are we trying to address first? Like apartment workforce housing, single family. I mean, it's different groups of people that are looking for housing. And I feel like we are moving forward, and I don't have any intent of stopping just because we come to one and are working on it. That doesn't mean that we don't keep looking at others and continuing to try and improve and do more, because again, it is going to improve the community.
Yeah, I mean, and like, it seems like there's like 4 properties that seem like, are possible for affordable housing, but the other 2 are so much more contentious. I mean, the driving range, we brought it up. I heard people in the community were upset about that. Even the parking lot, that's a central area in town. When we have big events, I mean, that parking lot's filled all summer long.
No, I think your idea of the parking lot was to go above it, but I don't see that penciling out. Find it being affordable, but I'm not a builder, so.
I think
He
to your
penciled
point
it.
about getting
Yeah,
to
okay.
that goal.
It would be a
of
lot.
all the housing that we need to address. I think that's gonna happen, just incrementally over time. Is that, we provide this many, the township can provide this many, outside new community vision can provide this many, but as we're moving forward, what we're doing is we're sort of filling that time gap. And it's like, don't wanna speak for new community vision, but I think we're farther along than they are. In terms of like an idea of what we wanna see, getting this stuff going, they're still trying to figure out how many units they can get, and I think the other thing too is, funding. I mean, that's gonna be another issue for some of these, is gonna be, how are they gonna fund these major, large projects where they're gonna build, 20 single family units or something like that. That's gonna take a lot of time too. And so I do see your point about how do we address all the housing that we need, right? Because that's, I think, what you were saying.
Yeah,
And I think that how we do it is like baby
We can only
steps.
do it.
It takes 10 steps to make a mile or whatever, I think it's just good. It's one of those kind of slow moving things that's gonna eventually, we're gonna keep knocking this out, and we're gonna hit some plateaus, and then we're gonna go up and we're gonna plateau off. But I think that, by, like I said, by us moving along and really kind of starting this processing, that it shows that we are working on it. We are contributing to the cause. And then as people see us doing that, I think there will be more momentum behind these other projects that are gonna help address maybe in a larger scale.
My only, and like, just, this will be my final point, we can move on from this, is like. Once we like donate that property, like it's irreversible, like we don't have, much. A lot of supply to say, oh, okay, we can, sell off a lot of parcels, it's, in my view. If we could sell all of the parcels, get as much money as we can, and then, try to actually make like true change, like a dent in both the village and the township, collaboratively. It would be more effective in the long term, and I don't know, I don't see why it, if we can get an assessment on West Street, then, I don't see what's wrong with getting them on Seventh or High Street either.
We've had so many on Seventh Street. I mean, like, and when we did have those appraisals, I think you could look at them, but now they're already over a year old, but they were done July of last year. And the part that was done is the park part. So, I mean, if you look at the numbers from the previous time, you could like extrapolate, but I mean, I don't think that it's worth as much as you think that it is. One, just because of the market right now, but there's literally the property right next door has a house that is very large, several bedrooms, bathrooms, everything. And they keep dropping the price on it. I think right now it's at like 600 or less. And that has a full house on it with a 3-car garage. I mean, like, I just don't think it's gonna be worth as much as you might think, especially because it has contamination on it.
No, I mean, housing prices have been like the highest they've ever been, it's like, so the.
They're going down.
Yeah, big time going down right now.
It's, the bubble's deflating. Anyway, I'm gonna say point of order because I just have work to do.
Okay.
And we can talk about this all night.
Oh, Hugh, what do you got?
Yes, I don't know if you guys are aware, the presentation that the township had for the recycled property is for rental only, rental units only.
We are aware,
Okay.
or I mean, and that's a segment that needs to exist. So if they're gonna do that, we can do something different, look and make it fill a niche that doesn't exist, because now everybody wants a rental apartment.
Exactly.
Yeah, we need
I think the two plans dovetail pretty well. I like what's happening.
Okay, so
I just wanna kind of put a bow on that. I'm gonna get a
Wrap it up
number,
first.
I'm gonna get a number for an appraisal on the West Street properties. Okay, share that with you, see what that is, see if it's below my authority. Ready to move with that. And then also come back with a scope and a number for renderings.
that sounds good. We
Yep.
can look at that at the next meeting. And rings. Okay. Item E. Excuse me, commercial slip agreement with Jerry Spears. Let's see. There was a small synopsis in here about the services rendered, the value of the slip for the last 4 years, and I assume that's 21, 2, 3, 4, 5. So
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so 5 years? 4 years, 4 seasons, 4 seasons, okay. And hopefully everybody had a chance to review the agreement that is being proposed. Any discussion on the agreement or,
Yeah,
yes,
I have a lot to say about this.
okay,
I just, I'm almost speechless. But that isn't that's not my style. I don't even know where to begin. From the very beginning, when Mr. Spears came to this village council requesting a commercial slip, the proposal that was made in the meeting and that he verbally agreed to, or we voted on, was that his slip fee would be double the commercial rate. There was no mention of a discount for the slip being too far away from anything. There was no mention of getting 4 parking spaces assigned to that slip. That was never part of what the council voted on. The council voted on double the commercial rate, whatever the commercial rate shall be. I don't know if it's still only $6,000, but the total due, by my math, is well over 60,000. So the 50,000, I think, is a joke. Secondly, I don't know where or how the harbor master found the authority to hire him as a private contractor to the tune of $11,000 with no village council approval whatsoever. How did that happen? You can't, he doesn't have the authority to spend that money. He doesn't have the authority to hire people other than his own employees, which he has to pay for out of his budget. For that to be separate, I don't understand how that possibly could have happened. And I also understand that he has done that with some Jim Firestone to clean the bathrooms, which is he has subcontracted that person out to the village without authority from the village. As far as the 33,000 for payment for painting, that said it was approved in a waterfront committee meeting. Waterfront committee has no authority to spend money at all. When was that put to a vote to the village? That amount, as far as I'm concerned, is illegal. I called Eagle on that because what he was doing was scraping lead-based paint into the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, you know, that was never approved by this council. The only thing that I remember being approved by the council was the replacement of the dock pilings. That's the only work that I see that is valid in any of his bills. And like I said, there's no room for discount. The last question is, how did this go 5 years without being resolved? And so I'm putting this all squarely on the shoulders of the harbor master. And in my opinion, this is like malfeasance. I mean, this is like fireable offenses. This is completely losing track and control of your fiscal responsibility. And I want this brought up. I want a special meeting on his performance. And I'm going to recommend that, depending on how that meeting comes out, possible termination. And this is crazy what has been allowed to happen here. And I'm vehemently opposed to giving Mr. Spears 3 years of free moorage in the village when it should at the most be 2 by my math. And somebody's head should roll for allowing this to go 5 years without any reconciliation. How does he get away without paying for all these years? I mean, it's just, and then he submits an invoice on a napkin. I mean, where is any invoice? Where was any work proposal, scope of work proposal, anything that was approved by anyone? Look, this is the 2020s. We don't do business like we did, you know, on a handshake and a bottle of whiskey back, you know, and then when Greg King was president or was village manager. I'm just appalled at how this got to this situation. And I'm not going to be a part of approving anything like this. And I honestly think there needs to be a serious review on what happened with that harbor master and how this happened, because this is totally unprofessional. That's what I have to say. So yeah, I'm 100% against this agreement. I don't even want to present it to Mr. Spears. I think it needs a complete rework. And I think we need to take a look at our policy, and we need to have an immediate performance review of the harbor master.
Jody?
I just would like to say I sat in meetings with our harbor master and our village manager probably almost 2 years ago, where they were trying to get this worked out. You know, there were promises made by our manager, former manager, to get this reconciled.
Okay,
I
but
just
why,
want to say that.
without it being reconciled, why was he allowed to tie up? I mean, there's no way he should have been able to bring his boat back into the marina without a contract.
I do know that our harbor master was not in favor of that.
And who let it happen? I mean, the sheriff should have been called and kick him out. I mean, this guy has been booted from the marina before. We put a chain across his slip one year. And this is the same guy. I don't know why the village of Northport is addicted to doing business with Mr. Spears when year after year and deal after deal goes horribly south. The years ago when he did he was the low bid on digging the ditch down on 4th Street, $18,000. Well, with all his cost overruns, it was 90, and he was double the price of the highest bid. I have said in village council meetings, it's been an agreed policy. We don't hire this guy. He doesn't submit invoices. He doesn't do anything by the book. It's all, you owe me this and you owe me that. And I grew up here, so I, you know, whatever. No, I mean, I'm done with it. And the fact that this is still happening after all these years and after all these screw ups with this guy is beyond me. I mean, and the harbor master was warned from day one not to get in bed with this guy. And he did it anyway. I don't understand it. And I had no idea this was going on. I did not know that he had not paid anything in terms of cash, or there hadn't been a reconciliation with labor done. It had never been balanced out, and yet he gets to run a supposed business, and that's another question. Did he even have any guests on that boat this summer? Is it actually a business, or did he jump the line claiming it to be a business so he could not have to wait through the waiting list to get a slip? I think the whole thing it's a scam, it's fraudulent, and there's a lot of people who should be in trouble about this, and how to reconcile it at this point, I don't know, but we're not giving them 3 years of free mortgage. I mean, that's just insane. That's what I have to say. I mean, the 33,000, where nobody ever approved that. And yeah, sure, that was Steve Weatherby, because they were buddies, but that was never voted on.
Joni's done a lot of research looking at where we could find minutes and documentation to support these costs. We've done the
In
best we can.
council.
Right, but I don't see any votes.
I can't defend all of those.
Well, so these payments, if we made them, even in lieu of mortgage, would be illegal. I mean, this is something maybe you have to talk to Ross about. We can't pay somebody $33,000 without, or the value of $33,000 without a vote.
Well, and that's the issue, and that's what I'm trying to do here is end this kind of barter.
No, that can't happen.
And there have been, I can't speak to all of them, but there's been more people involved than just the harbor master through the years. In coming to this situation where you have essentially what's a barter arrangement where somebody has a slip, a commercial slip, in exchange for the value of services rendered. And I don't want to see that kind of arrangement. So however we move forward, that's my priority, is to put an end to that and to make sure that the slips there's an agreement in place. And that there's monetary compensation in direct exchange for the slip.
Yeah,
That's my goal.
I don't think it's legal for a municipality to barter. I seriously, I think that's probably goes against some municipal statute. I mean, I don't see how, and especially without council approval. So, that's a good question for Ross. If that $33,000 that was never approved is illegal, who bears the brunt of that? Whose responsibility is it? Should it be Mr. Spears for not doing due diligence to make sure that the council had approved that contract? And what contract was there? There's nothing in writing.
I do have meeting minutes on the painting of the
Meeting
marina
minutes.
and the $11,000.
Minutes,
Mhm.
I don't know that there's any
Village council.
contract.
Minutes, but was there a vote tally? Okay, well, that's not in your spreadsheet. I don't see anywhere where the council approved anything. I see waterfront committee approving. That's
We can't approve.
waterfront can't spend money.
Right.
So if there is a vote of the entire council on that, I'd like to see it.
I will pull what I have.
Okay.
It's July, October that there's the marina painting contract,
Mhm.
July, October 2021. But that's like the break wall, so I don't know if it's the other stuff, unless that's all tied. I mean, that's what you're talking about, right? That's the vote, probably.
Probably be 2018. is what
No,
some of the
so-
votes got to do. So, yeah.
So you've had discussions with Mr. Spears about these terms
Oh,
and
yeah.
what is his response? I mean, you say that he seems agreeable, so he has already seen this, like, it's not like you
Yeah.
can not show it to him.
Yeah, well, I wanted to make sure I didn't, have something that no one would agree to, without, going through this process and this discussion, but. So I've reviewed the format of it, and that's where the number came up, where there were assurances made by previous administration that. There was a $10,000 value on the slip.
That's not what the minutes of the
I-
meeting
I-
will show when we originally approved it.
And I understand that's a point of contention.
He agreed to double the
It-
seasonal rate. And it has been brought up many times that he has to prove that he's a viable business. We've asked for sales tax receipts, which he has never provided, a business license, that he's never provided.
Those are part of the slip agreement.
But yeah, but where is it? Where's his documentation? He's never turned it in.
I don't have a signed slip agreement.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say, cause that was another question I had. So like the slip agreement details, if the council were to agree, is that he would continue to sign. Has he ever signed one before? Or this has just never, ever been signed? In any year, any season?
Well, wouldn't this be a conversation to have with the harbor master?
You bet.
There'll be a discussion. To have Bill involved, I'm speaking on the turn. Sorry.
Yeah, you are. Point of order.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
obviously this needs to, I mean, there needs to be some sort of continuation. We can't just leave it as it is. We
Yeah.
can't, if people don't agree to what the terms are, or there are disagreements to what it should be, it's gonna have to be another discussion. So I mean, I feel like I don't know if you wanna have it on the regular meeting, or if there should be a special meeting, might be better, because or if there needs to be a further discussion with the harbor master, I don't,
I would suggest a special meeting, because we don't wanna do this at 7 o'clock at night and with, when we have other business on the table. I think we need to have a special meeting during business hours, and I think the harbor master needs to be here, to explain himself. And then we also have to talk to Ross about the legality of bartering, giving value for something that wasn't approved by the council, if in fact it wasn't. I'm saying if in fact, and maybe there's a vote that I don't remember. I certainly would not vote for scraping paint into the water. I didn't want to paint it in the
Before
first
that
place.
meeting.
Anything you put on those beams, any paint, you put it on, eventually it's gonna go in the water. There's no reason to paint them. All the other marinas just let them go to patina color. And they last just as long. I actually looked up a study on it. The paint doesn't make them last any longer. So there's no reason to paint them. I was against it. It's a hazard. It's a toxic pollution thing, and we shouldn't be paying 30 grand for it. The pilings needed to be done, and that was a nasty job, and he did a good job. That's all I can say.
Okay. Lot said.
Wow.
Special meetings? Is there
I
some consensus?
think that makes the most sense, because obviously this is gonna take more conversation.
Yeah.
And obviously.
Mistakes were made.
Any meeting minutes that the clerk could provide regarding any of the work approved or not. The original amount that was agreed to, the double the commercial rate, anything,
That's what I've been paying.
yeah, so anything that we could have that would support, statements made today in terms of what the original agreements were.
And just point on that, I mean, I don't get 4 assigned parking spaces for my customers, and I don't pay any more or less because of the location of my slip, and that was never the agreement we had to begin with.
Well, that's, I think, points to.
It's crazy.
A negotiated, amount by a former manager, or harbor master, again. I think that the council's involvement was in some ways either ignored or circumvented regarding the marina. And that's the village's marina, not the harbor master's marina, not the slip holders marina. It's owned by the village in Northport, and so clearly more oversight over the marina moving forward, I think needs to be handled.
I'll also have Ross review the agreement that I put together and weigh in on some of these issues, okay?
Well, find out if those votes were taken, because if the votes weren't taken, that's a whole different legal issue. And I have no idea what the answer to that is. When a village spends money that wasn't approved, something went horribly wrong, if that's what happened. But before you bother waste Ross's $250 an hour, find out what the facts are on if votes were taken, if money was approved.
So we won't have this next week, but.
No.
No.
And that, it's gonna take us a little bit of work to put that together.
Real quick, I'm really confident to recall that there was, for the break wall, was him to pressure wash and prep and paint that not to exceed $25,000. Is that something, Mary?
Yeah, I'm reading
Under
it
the
right now.
docks, he was doing
No, that
stuff
was-
under the
Okay,
docks.
but I mean, he
I
does,
don't know what that was.
he did the break wall, then he went and did the gas stock. And
Well, he started doing like B-Doc.
I mean, I have the minutes from October 7, 2021.
Wow.
There's discussion items. And it definitely, when you're looking at, sorry, I just scrolled and now I went away. Scope of Northport Marina paintwork, President Weatherby explained that the current paintwork was previously authorized not to exceed 25K, was coming in around 11K. Weatherby would like for Jerry Spears to continue painting the I-beams under the docks, under the current not to exceed amount.
And that got shot down, because I
It did.
remember,
It did.
yes, I convinced people not to vote for it because of the
Trustee
environmental
Cook
impact.
was in support of keeping Mr. Spears moving ahead and a great painting job. Trustee Harper was not in support of continuing work on docks and did not see a reason to preserve the metal. Harper would prefer to have floating docks. Harper also questions if a proper permitting had been pulled. President Weatherby concluded that the conversation needed to be tabled until all council members had a chance to do fact finding and visit the marina.
The original 25 was approved.
At the July meeting, I think, previously.
Right, but he had only invoiced 11 at that point.
Yes,
And so what Weatherby's saying is like, oh, we were approved, so let's let
do
him,
more work.
let him do more work. But that's still only 25, and we didn't approve letting him do more work. He just went ahead and did it.
We received a letter from the state telling us to stop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
You
because
remember
like
that?
all,
Mhm.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like this will be up for some further discussion at a meeting date yet to be determined.
Okay.
Okay, any other discussion on that?
well, don't forget with Ross, like, what do we have to do? Because the reason he's there is because it's a commercial slip. If he's not having guests, he's not taking people out on charters, where's the commerce? Did you see a single, the people that I know that normally rent from him did not this year. I didn't see any people on that boat that wasn't him.
I saw one crew. Just a one time. They were.
Looks like a ruse to me.
But, you know,
Okay. All right. So, got your notes?
Yeah. Exclamation point.
Okay, all right, well, appreciate all the discussion on the matter. Brings us to item F, which is a tree removal proposal from Barfield Tree Care. The proposals in the
We also-
packet.
we also had a revised one.
Oh.
That we just received today. I put it in the Dropbox. It says revised partial tree care proposal because we had this original one. We know what our budget was. We budgeted 12,000 out of general fund. We use a little bit more in the road funds. But that 22 was a little high. We wanted to work with partial to get a lower figure. Chris could speak to a little bit more. They refined the number of trees, tried to prioritize, really narrow down to only the most severe situations. And it's always a balance, right? You know, we know we have a much bigger group of trees that are failing or dead. They need to be trimmed and removed, but we can't get to all of them in 1 year. Right? So how much do we do? It's a subjective kind of
if I
thing.
can speak on that.
Yeah, please do.
So again, I met with Matt Harrell from Barfield Tree. We went back through, kind of re-reviewed and prioritized, as Jared said, and looked at ones that I consider a public concern, safety issue. So at this point, we're at $8,725. I wanted to leave some money in there in contingency fund just as we get into the winter season, in case we have, you know, storm, wind, and so on. I'll leave a little in there. The estimates and his, I will say, appraisals of the trees that were identified, they're not going away. You know, we're gonna have to address these. Unfortunately, a lot of these are very old, as we know, they hit the maturity, and some are huge. One right down there on Second Street by rentals, it's gotta be treated as, it's a silver maple. It's 97 inches in diameter, and he said, I gotta treat that, essentially it's 5 different trees. I mean, it's gonna take some doing. So again, reiterate, we broke it down to the ones we feel that were critical and crucial at 87.25, and I think it's a deal.
So the 87.25 is the revised, I don't have the revised.
Yeah.
It just showed
It
up.
should be.
It just showed up.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, yep.
Okay, so they're looking
Oh,
at
yeah,
1,
there's-
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 trees maybe? I do have a
Yes.
question about the numbering. Are all the trees in the village numbered? Is that what like number 61 and 60 are, or that's like,
No, they're just how they basically invoice it.
okay,
Yeah, you'll see from number 27 on up to 61.
yep,
Okay, so, and a lot of it unfortunately is right up and around the Trinity Church, West Second. Again, old mature trees, and, we may end up losing more thanks to consumers. Consumers has informed me a while back, I haven't had a timeline specified. They're replacing all the poles starting right here at the corner of Warren and Third and going west. Right, to be honest, through my yard, I said, he's gotta go.
I got 2 trees, they can take it.
Yeah. I got 5 trees, I don't want touched, so here we are.
When is that gonna occur?
I don't know, they haven't given me a date, that was last year, and then we went round and round again. And I have not got a specific date.
Laura, do you have something?
Yeah, I just had a question, and it looks like it might be now with the revised one, but I was just, cause I saw there were all those charges for the log removal, and I just wondered if that was something DPW could do. Is that something
That's
you're
what-
gonna do in the
Yep.
revised one now? Okay,
Yep.
cool. That makes sense. I wasn't sure, cause I was like, maybe you can't since it's included. I just that seemed like something you guys might be able to handle.
The biggest thing, anything over 26 inches, then this would be another surcharge for removal. I said, we'll take care of it.
Okay, cool.
But it then comes back to us with our wonderful mountain brushing that we have to take care of.
Little pile.
Yeah.
Where are you gonna burn that?
Right your back.
Um,
Yeah, the move discussion for another time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, okay, so it looks like you've identified 7 of the trees that are of the highest priority, and that's what we're gonna
Yes, please.
look to approve. And so this will come back, in 2 weeks for approval, if everyone agrees to the 87.25.
Well, and thanks for having them work on bringing it down, cause
Yeah.
I think it's much more manageable this way and then fits within the funds.
I basically have to throw everything in the hopper and just, line item those that we could kind of pick and choose. And again, looking at priority, just trying to be, pretty sure responsible.
Well, it gives us a little room for those unseen things that.
Right.
We can anticipate.
Yeah, and the thing is, if with some of these, that doing them now opposed to emergency call out, price doubles. So let's be, preemptive and,
Okay, so we'll look for this revised proposal to come back at the next meeting for approval, so we can get those taken down, and then timeline is when things slow down.
Yeah, he said that he could get on it by the end of the month,
Oh, cool.
so.
All right, thank you for all that, Chris. And that brings us to our second public comments. If anybody in members of the public would like to make a comment, you've got up to 5 minutes to address the village council. And just ask that you please state your name and address for the record. And I can't see everybody. Yeah, go ahead, Betsy.
Yes, thank you. Elizabeth Malik, North Township. Two things. One, I was not aware of the discrepancy with the township, and I will talk to Barb. I don't know if that's an accounting thing where they just didn't move the names, but there are multiple lists. And yes, just yesterday, the blue binder is still sitting in the vestibule of the township hall that shows all the 10 ones that were paid. So I don't know if it's they didn't transfer the information. I don't know where the glitch is, but I'll talk to Barb about it for you. I have all the records back to 2005, so I should have something if that's what it is. If it's somebody didn't enter something, I can't fix that. But moving on with that too, I just want to highlight to you all, I don't know if you're aware, hopefully you are, that within the SAD, there were several parcels that were vacant parcels as well as rolled up parcels. So that's pent up demand. And when I look at one of the pages from 2007, and believe me, there's tons of documents, it basically said that there were 581 actual parcels in the village, which included the municipal owned properties, but that there were only 485 assessed. So that's a differential of almost 100. And then there's in the township 135 actual parcels and 118 assessed. Somewhere those numbers would have flushed out, but I would like to understand, and that may be a Natula question, but I think the village and township both have to have the understanding and need to have the SAD study that needs to incorporate. So I hope Jacobs is not going ahead with that study without including those parcels, because that's pent up demand. Those are part of the original SAD district, and people did roll up their parcels, and they'll be able to unroll them and just pay their 10-1 and move on. So we have to account for that. The other thing is I'm concerned with the spending any money. I will address that, and I agree. There are a lot of people that are concerned about spending money. So if Jared is successful in getting some students to do a rendering, I guess that's fine, but we've had a lot of renderings. I don't hear anybody talking about multi-use Chicago Cabrini Green type thing, so I haven't heard that, Will, but I do think that there's a lot of good concepts out there, and I do think we have a lot of overlap. I attended the township meeting. The rentals, yes, but John Simpson with Homestretch said that, and if we've got all this pent up demand, his comment didn't make sense. He says, we'll build one unit. He said, but it may take us 10 years to build the second. So that didn't sound real healthy. So I think the township is probably going to do their due diligence and look to see what options they have to continue to pursue that route. I know Tim Overdeer, and you mentioned that. I'd love to see the village and township look into that further. It's out of the SAD district. I continue to say that is just not affordable for people, and I fear that we had a lot of people move out of Northport because they could not afford the sewer dollars. So if you continue to pursue putting housing, and I know it's ideal, people want to walk to town. Okay, well, I don't think a mile is going to kill them, but and I think everybody pretty much has cars, and you're not going to be walking in 10 degrees in the winter in Northport anyway. But all that aside, I do think that we ought to consider parcels that are outside of the SAD in addition to that you already own. If you did sell off, to Will's point, if you did sell off the properties that the people are feeling that might be more beneficial. And I agree with that from the standpoint that if you took the value of the High Street and the value of 7th Street parcels, and you went out and invested in something similar to the Tim Overdeer concept or thereabouts, and waiting for the Land Division Act, which is going to further intensify the density allowable in the township, I think you might be further ahead. And this is not putting it off. There's people that think, oh my gosh, we got to do it tomorrow. No, we're talking about a couple of months. The SAD study should be done first part of the year. So I'm just a little concerned that we're spending money, we're trying to make it look pretty when we really haven't gone and figured out the best options for both the township and the village, and please work together. I'd love to see Chris, you sit with Barb and you two just sit there and brainstorm, because I think that the debacle we had with the sewer is not healthy. I don't really want to see that repeated. I do want to see affordable housing. I think it's been desired. And for a long time, I've got notes that go way back into the 2015, 2016, we were talking about it. So that's not the issue. The issue is doing it in the most appropriate, most cost-efficient way. And I don't think pretty pictures are really the issue at the moment. It's really, where can people afford these houses? What kinds of houses do we need? Duplex, can we mix them? What's NCV doing? I don't know how far they've gotten. I do know as of last week, they had a civil engineer now looking at the sites. That will be healthy because, you know, how much can perk, where it can perk, how can they design? So I think all that's going to be very relevant to you as you go forward. I just would ask you to at least try and do it in a cohesive, all-encompassing manner and not start putting one thing out there or another thing out there. Appreciate the workshop and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Betsy. Any other public comment? Any unmuters? If not, Campbell?
Yeah, Campbell McLeod on High Street in the village. I haven't been to a meeting in a while, and I think this idea that you have of 2 meetings a month is great, this workshop. Really a lot of good ideas come out. A lot of the additional housing you're talking about would be dependent upon having sewer capacity, and I guess there is a study being done to cover that. Due the beginning of the month, I'm just kind of curious on that, a head nod maybe.
Yeah, February.
Okay, so, and from that, you can do a lot of anticipation, but there will be costs associated with the upkeep and the repair of the sewer. And a cost that's upcoming that everybody kicks down the can is the pump. And there's a couple facets to that, one being the dam and the other is the dredging of the pond. Now, you can look at that, well, people have looked at that as part of the village ambiance. There is some safety concern because of the filling, it's basically a sediment trap at this point. So you're getting a situation where it's an unhealthy pond that's there. I see a lot of ideas and leadership at this table now. In the past, there's just been a lot of managing. So a lot of times you have a decision to make and there's no perfect decision. There's a right and a wrong one though. So if you can get somebody to pay for dredging the pond and you don't have to pay for that, that would be a good deal. And that's going to impact the whole village. And now we're going to get the funds from that. So we talked about rendering a lot here, you know, what the future may look like. When people have a choice between the pond and a rewilding stream, they really don't know what the rewilding stream would look like. So I would think that to make that choice, you need to see what it would look like. I think there's a lot of people would be very pleased with a running stream through the village, trout coming up, brook trout coming up. The sediment concern that now is kept in the pond can be controlled through engineering devices, as well as when it enters the marina, it could be directed in a portion of the marina that's less damaging. The source of the sediment, where does that come from? Because as you see the stream cross 3rd Street, there's no sediment load at all in the stream. It's coming from the hills behind 3rd Street to the north. So is there any erosion ongoing that can be prevented to reduce the amount of sediment coming into the pond and the stream? I think you really need to have a good study done and get ahead of that, because eventually that will fill. And it's been, I don't know, 15 years, it'll be 16 years if they wanted to do something about it. And I think every 10 years or so, the folks were dredging that pond. So it's time. If you can patch the dam and make that survive for a number of years, but when the pond fills, you gotta empty it. And that's gonna be, I don't know, $600,000-700,000. Yeah, so I think you have to address that, and if you get the state to do it for you, and the rewilding of the stream, Will is shaking his head, and I don't think that's we have to be a little bit more, and that's, I don't mean to be critical, but we have to open up a little bit of possibilities that we don't currently know. Additional data comes in, you may have the courage to vote to have that pond rewild. Because I know a lot of people are very nervous about it, they're concerned about what people will think of them. We have new data right now, we have a cost issue. And it's getting worse. It doesn't get cheaper to dredge the pond. If you guys somehow come up with the money, you kick it down the road to the next generation has to do it. It's not needed anymore. You know, it's just not needed. And I do the rendering, put it for a vote or whatever, but there is a solution here that's eliminating a lot of costs. I don't know where you come up with that money. I don't really know. Because that sewer is gonna cost more and more money than you currently realize, I'm sure. And Jerry Spears, I think I was on the council at that time, and we said no to Steve, and I think that some deals were made and things happened that weren't approved by the council. That's too bad. That's all I got.
All right,
I'd love to.
thanks, Campbell. Any other public comment? Once?
Well, can I have another public comment?
No. I gotta go.
Different topic.
Okay,
No.
all right, council comment? Oh, there's no, okay,
Sorry, I think I don't.
Council comment.
Sorry.
I have a couple things. One is that I would really like to see on a future agenda a discussion about our legal representation. I appreciate that Ross was here today on this one issue, but I know there are several issues that we've been waiting a long time to get resolved or get his opinions on. Monopole being one of them. We have other things happening, and without having that for us to be able to move forward, it drags all those issues out, making it more difficult to resolve them. And I really think if we then have this and you want to get his opinion on it, great, but I am very skeptical that we're going to get any answer before 6 months have passed. I don't know, so I would love to have a discussion on, do they have an additional attorney that can assist? Is that the problem? There's not enough hours in the day. I don't know, but having to wait months and months is very frustrating, and I would have asked to add it to the agenda, but I feel like you're able to do a lot of research and information for us when we plan it ahead instead of doing it at the last minute, but I would really like to see that on a
Okay.
future agenda.
I brought this up last time too. I'm a little frustrated with this pace of work. Also, when we were going through RFPs, when we hired Ross, I did some research with the Michigan Municipal League and other sources that say best practices are you should change your village attorney every 5 years. It's just, that is best practices, and it's been 5 years. So we may want to think about putting out an RFP within the next year. And if we rehire Ross, that's fine, but we should have an RFP go out every 5 years, just as a matter of practice. And also watching today, sure, it's great that you tuned in, but then I kept seeing his name up on the Zoom board, and I'm just seeing sand going through the hourglass going, okay, that's another $30. That's another $30. It's another, every minute is $30. And I'm like, okay, he was on the call a little longer than he needed to be, in my opinion. So that kind of thing just eats at me a little bit. Okay, that's all I had to say.
And then my second thing, sorry, I just really wanted to tell people that the winter clothing drive is going for the school. It's this week. There's 4 drop-off locations, and it's new or gently used items from 5T to adult sizes. It's for our students specifically, and we really appreciate any support for that.
Where to drop off?
It's the school. There's one outside and inside. There's one at ATC outside. There's one inside at the library, and the Leelanau Government Center has one in the lobby. Thanks.
Rachel's been working on that.
Any other council comment?
I'd like to, I don't even know if we're allowed to do this, but if we can submit the application for the dam restoration. The deadline is November 19th, which is before our next meeting. Even if we don't go forward with it, at least you can have that deadline. It says here we can save, I don't know, $350,000 potentially. And, since taking down the dam or restoring it is going to be approximately the same price, this should be a consideration. It's going to be a cost savings.
Oh, it's not on the agenda, so there's not much we can do
Well,
about it.
there's a lot of discussion we have to
Yeah,
have,
there's-
talking about the pond, it's in the
Right,
master
yeah,
plan
right.
and the rec plan. I mean, like, it's a public hearing sort of thing.
Yeah,
Plus, this is like, there's several.
You just send an application, just to, like, not to do anything, you know, we're not,
To have a decent application.
Takes some
We just don't have time right now.
okay.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
4 o'clock, we're adjourned.
Right on.
I mean, here's that.
Yeah.
It's gonna be an hour.
Yeah.
I wish that one.
That's,
Yeah.
you're so meeting.
Yeah.
But you know, but guess what? I have an envelope in my truck for you.
He's the Amazon
He's the
delivery
Amazon
guy now. I told you, you should make a public service announcement. I had so many people text me asking why will just show up in my driveway with my Amazon package. And we had people come in to ATC yesterday who were like, the packages must have gotten delivered to the wrong, to Will, like he brought them to my house, he scared us and stuff. I'm like, you need to tell people that you're the delivery guy. You are too recognizable to just be showing up. Everybody thinks you're delivering their misdelivered package when really you're getting paid.
Okay, yeah.
He's getting paid by Amazon to deliver the packages now. Yeah, so it takes.
I should be the guy.